Democratic and Republican negotiators in talks to raise the U.S. debt ceiling got a bit more breathing room on Friday, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the government was likely to run out of money to pay its bills on June 5th, 4 days later than she had previously predicted. Negotiators appeared to be nearing a deal to lift the $31.4 trillion debt limit for 2 years, but were still at odds over whether to stiffen work requirements for some anti-poverty programs.
Look, I'm going to work as hard as I can. As soon as we get a deal, we're going to get a deal, but it has to be worthy of the American people.
Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Democratic President Joe Biden have struggled to reach an agreement to raise the federal government's self-imposed borrowing limit and avert a potentially disastrous default that could wreak havoc on both U.S. and global economies. With the potential impact so far-reaching, the International Monetary Fund weighed in on Friday. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva.
The concern about speedy resolution of the debt ceiling is one that has been well explained, and I join these concerns. We are very keen to see a resolution as soon as possible. Let's remember we are now in the 12th hour.
Several credit rating agencies have said they put the United States on review for a possible downgrade, which would push up borrowing costs and undercut its standing as the backbone of the global financial system. In Washington, Biden and his Democrats have resisted a Republican push to require some recipients of Medicaid and SNAP food assistance programs to prove they are working or looking for work to qualify. Democrats say the proposal would create more red tape that would exclude people in need who otherwise qualify. Both programs have already been scaled back in recent months. Most lawmakers in Congress have left Washington for a week-long holiday, but an official briefed on the talks said they could easily.
The U.S. economy has proven resilient. Consumer demand has held up particularly well, initially boosted by a drawdown of pent-up savings, and more recently by solid growth in real disposable income. Bringing inflation firmly back to the 2% target will require an extended period of tight monetary policy. As I mentioned, inflation is streaming down. Nonetheless, under the IMF's baseline forecast, we see the federal funds rate remaining at 5.25% to 5.5% until late 2024. In other words, rates will need to be somewhat higher for longer. There is a need to do more to lower the public debt. A call for a broad range of policies incorporating both tax revenue increases and addressing structural imbalances in programs such as Social Security and Medicare. The sooner this adjustment is put in place, the better.
American consumers spent more than expected in April, boosting the economy's growth prospects for the second quarter. Commerce Department data released Friday showed an increase in consumer spending of 0.8% last month. That's twice as much as what economists polled by Reuters had expected. The increase comes even as prices continued to rise in April. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the Federal Reserve's preferred gauge of inflation, rose 0.4% in April after gaining 0.1% in March. That puts the annual inflation rate at 4.4% for April. It had been at 4.2% the month prior. The uptick could prompt the Fed to raise interest rates again next month. Credit has become more expensive since the Fed embarked on its fastest monetary policy tightening campaign since the 1980s to tame inflation. Banks have also tightened lending following recent financial market turmoil. But recent data showing a rebound in factory production and a pickup in business activity suggests the economy is picking up speed after a slow start to the year.
Behind closed doors in Europe and North America, in capitals and in military headquarters, there's an intense debate unfolding. Who should become the next leader of the NATO military alliance? But while Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is expected to step down in September, and a replacement could be named as early as July, there are many names being put forward and no obvious frontrunner. So who are some of them, and what's the debate? Jamie Shea is with the Chatham House think tank in London and a former NATO spokesperson.
There's no shortage of possible candidates. Many women names are being suggested, and as NATO has never had a female Secretary General before, I think in terms of conveying the impression of a 21st century alliance attuned to modern society, it's high time that the Secretary General of NATO should be a woman, as has been the case with so many other international organisations. Of course, countries like in Central and Eastern Europe that have been in NATO for some time already and are playing a big role in the current collective defence on the eastern flank, they may well feel it's our time to have the job as well.
Diplomatic sources say the names being discussed include Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen. She says she hasn't officially applied for the job, but regardless, she's emerged as one of the bigger contenders. At 45, she was the country's youngest prime minister when she was elected and won praise for her crisis management during the COVID pandemic. But she'd have to step down as prime minister, which might create political turmoil at home. And her country's military spending is also well below the 2% of GDP that NATO has as its guideline, although she's said she wants to boost it.
And we have tried this several times before.
In Eastern Europe, Estonia's Prime Minister, Kaja Kallas, has been discussed. She's also 45 and was the first woman elected as Prime Minister there. But some members see Kallas as too hawkish on Russia. In the United Kingdom, its Secretary of Defense, Ben Wallace, has put his own name forward. He's highly respected across the alliance, a member of parliament and also a former military officer. But some European Union countries, such as France, want a NATO leader from within the EU. Many also prefer a candidate that used to be a president or prime minister. Stoltenberg himself is the former leader of Norway. Diplomats told Reuters that Wallace may be a long shot.
And my sense, given the role of NATO today, the importance of NATO today, the Allies will be looking for somebody who is a serving Prime Minister, because a Prime Minister really has the contacts, the address book, the ability to make immediate phone calls to presidents and prime ministers, both in the NATO countries and beyond, which are geared to the kind of high-level diplomacy that NATO is now carrying out.
There are other names being discussed, but there's also another angle. Some diplomats predict that many candidates would be deemed unacceptable to NATO members Turkey and Hungary, who are often at odds with the other allies over key issues. Turkey and Hungary are blocking Sweden's attempt to join NATO right now. In the end, Stoltenberg may be asked to stay on in his role to keep a united front in the face of war.
A Russian missile attack on a clinic in the eastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro on Friday killed 2 people and wounded 30. Video footage showed a devastated building with black smoke pouring out of it and rescue workers looking on. What appeared to be a body lay covered on the road nearby. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack as a crime against humanity. Moscow has dismissed the allegations that its soldiers have committed war crimes and denies deliberately targeting civilians, although it has bombarded cities across Ukraine since invading 15 months ago. After Ukrainian forces pushed back Russia's initial onslaught, the battle lines have shifted little since last fall. A highly anticipated Ukrainian spring offense has yet to materialize, despite an influx of NATO-supplied weaponry. At a meeting of European allies on Friday, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Russia must be defeated.
It is absolutely clear that it could be not a frozen conflict. So if Russia is just thinking that it could succeed with its robbery of land of Ukraine, it will not succeed with this idea and attempt And this is why we are supporting Ukraine as long as it is necessary. Russia must withdraw troops, and this is the basis for peace.
In Kyiv, U.S. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham sat down with the Ukrainian leader on Friday and pledged American support for his country.
There can be no forgiving and forgetting when it comes to Putin's war crimes. There can be no backing off of helping Ukraine, because if we fail here, there goes Taiwan.
He later told reporters that Russian President Vladimir Putin could not be forgiven for what he called industrial-level war crimes against the Ukrainian people, and said if Washington were to cut off aid to Kyiv, China would see it as a license to seize Taiwan.
The best way to protect Taiwan and world order is for Putin to lose. And if you don't get that, I think you're missing a lot.
And Kyiv raised a new alarm on Friday that Russia was planning to trigger a radiation leak at a nuclear station controlled by Moscow's forces. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry's intelligence directorate said Russia would soon shell the Zaporizhzhia power plant. The directorate statement, posted on Telegram, did not provide any proof.